Hello and welcome back. Hopefully everyone had the chance to join in. I can see we are really a high amount of people listening in today. The topic that we're going to cover today is FDA's take on AI-enabled systems and how we're dealing with that. But first and foremost, I think I would love to introduce my co-host here, Stefan, who's going to do the most of the talking today. Stefan has an incredible experience and knowledge within the use of AI. You've been working with the WHO and various health ministries across Europe, working amongst other things with AI, and have been co-author of a lot of scientific papers on the topic of AI. Not only the opportunities, but also some of the risks, which I know we'll cover today.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and thank you, Jakob, for being here with us today again. It's our second webinar on AI and GxP, so I'm really glad to be doing this with you today again. Welcome.
Welcome everyone. And I think just as a brief introduction, AI, we're seeing a rapid growth of AI, and we're also seeing a lot being implemented across GxP, all the way from drafting deviations and CAPAs to clinical study reports. But the real question is here, how do you ensure that the AI lives up to the FDA rules and requirements? And that's what we'll be discussing today. We'll be discussing how does the current guidance look like, and what is the approach that the FDA is taking. But I think before we really start in, we had a small poll going here just to have an idea of how far along people are in terms of implementing AI. I would say it does look like a normal distribution, almost epsilon distribution. I'm quite surprised by the number of people who have already fully implemented this in production. So that's truly interesting, but basically a quite flat distribution all the way from not using it at all to going into the topic. So hopefully that will serve as a baseline also for the questions today. Please remember you can use the chat on the right of your screen to ask any questions along the way. And it's always nice when people start helping each other. It's very clear from the results here that there's a various levels of knowledge, so there are no stupid questions. And hopefully we can help each other answer some of those questions that we don't have time to up here. I think without much further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Stefan. You're the true expert today, so I'm just here to.
Thank you, Jakob. Yeah. But before we move into the agenda, I really wanted to ask you. You know, we've had our first webinar on AI at the beginning of the year, and the progress of AI is quite fast. And I wanted to hear from you, like, how do you personally experience AI, and how your opinion of the limits and capacities of AI has changed over time, but also how your day-to-day use has shifted in these months since our last webinar?
I think it's, first of all, I think it's rather impressive that we start talking about a change of mindset over so few months, right? The capabilities of these systems is incredible. So I'll just hide this for everyone so that I think it's quite incredible where it has come to, what it can do. And to some extent, it's kind of scary, right? How much it can do. And I think some of the learnings that we've done over the last half a year or so, is really that the outputs of these large language models is so impressively. I mean, they seem so correct. They seem to be so accurate that we find ourselves having to reinforce the thought of having to question what it outputs, right? It's a very good persuader in that sense. It's very good at making results that seem very accurate, but sometimes are riddled with hallucinations or incomprehensions.
It's easier and easier to become lazy in this space, and that's a lot of our conversation today will be about how the FDA doesn't want us to do that and wants us to use critical thinking, but we'll get there soon. So let's kick things off with a quick recap. Like a lot of this we've covered in our previous webinar, but like, what do we talk about when we talk about AI? And we have here a definition from FDA that a lot of American institutions use, but it's basically any kind of machine-based system that can given human input, can make some predictions, define some recommendations, or even make decisions that have an effect on either real or virtual environments that you can see as AI. And we can dig deeper into that and think of 3 types of AI systems, which connect quite well. But the first one being predictive AI, and these are maybe your more traditional AI systems that can be deterministic, so can be maybe validated in a simpler way. So let's say an AI that predicts if a refrigerator will have an excursion. You shouldn't use a Gen AI, an LLM for this kind of context. But then you have Gen AI, which is where we have seen the most development. And these are we call them now multimodal models, because you can see with this recent advancements that you can feed not only text to this new generation of AI, but both images, maybe sound or video, and they can make sense and create content based on that. And these models can, basically the sky's the limit with in principle what they can do, but they can do anything from drafting text, summarizing, retrieving information, making sense of what you provide them. So again, an example of that would be an AI that summarizes a deviation or drafts a CAPA. And finally, we have, and here's where things get very complicated and interesting. You have the agentic layer, where you have these multimodal models that have tools. So basically you take a brain that is the generative AI model, and you give them hands and legs maybe, that they can use tools and they can run complex workflows on their own. So you can imagine in this case, like an AI that takes a deviation, creates, investigates that, creates a report, maybe even approves that report. So an end-to-end flow. And that's where things get most, tricky and complex. So yeah, agentic AI uses Gen AI as its brain. One thing I really wanted to highlight, we did that in the last webinar, but it's super important to point this out. Maybe the key risk factor when we think of Gen AI and agentic AI is hallucinations. And even the latest models, they have not fixed that. And if you look at what researchers from OpenAI are saying, is that basically hallucinations are part of how large language models are created, and at least with these generations, you cannot fix them. So it's part and parcel of the tool. And here there's one recommendation I have for you, if you have time, is to actually go to either OpenAI or Anthropic and open up these model system cards, where the manufacturers of these complex software foundational models, they analyze the performance of the models, and they evaluate them, and they look at hallucination rates and all sorts of other problems. And let's look at GPT 5.5, which is the most advanced, like the latest generation version of the model, and it's their own system card says, hey, our hallucination rates are, for responses are 9%, for making some sort of claims are there 11% or 2%. But how can you take a GxP level AI system into consideration with this type of hallucination rates? It's a question we will explore. We have a similar thing. Actually, Claude released Opus 4.8 recently, but they have not published their system card for that. So we are looking here at the system card for Opus 4.7, which is also the latest foundational model from Anthropic. And again, here you see this huge dishonesty rate, like the honesty rate of the model, of the most advanced model, is 77.2%. So 23 or 22.8% dishonesty that you can expect from the model. That's a bit scary, and we need to really.
And how should we understand this honesty?
So let's say it's a bit described there, but it's like how often the model identifies and corrects a user's mistaken assumption. You can connect that also with the concept of psychophancy, which has been quite a lot in the media. So if you say, it's raining outside, but if the model has weather data and it knows it's not raining, it might tend to agree with you because it was trained to be, aligned with what the user says. So this dishonesty rate is.
So you could exemplify that with taking a model like this and saying, well, I really don't want to do a CAPA. Is it really, really necessary? It could, like, in a large amount of cases, it could say, well, you actually don't need to do it.
Yeah, and it could even hallucinate data to support the fact that you don't need to do that CAPA. So there's a lot to unpack here. And the foundational model providers are making steps to deal with this, but again, it's not something that can get down to zero. Then maybe they can get it down to 5% or 2%, but it's still a huge concern in GxP environments. Still, we see examples of AI being used or piloted across GxP, and we have the example of Roche that are using AI with these RAG systems, so retrieval augmented systems, where they try to ground the brain to some specific data to handle deviations. You see that in a recent report from Anthropic that is promoting the use of their model by Novo Nordisk, and they claim that the time that Novo is spending to produce clinical study documentation has been reduced from 10 weeks to 10 minutes. Let's take that with a grain of salt. It's but a lot of these studies are kind of also promotional materials. But we see also Merck talking about how they're using Gen AI to create the first drafts of these study reports, bringing the time from like 2-3 weeks to a few days. So for the first draft of the reports, it seems like there's really strong evidence that this is working and that it's actually being used right now. But yeah, let's talk FDA. That's why we're here today. We have done quite a lot of digging on what the agency thinks about when it thinks about AI. There's not a clear rule book on AI in GxP right now, and probably it won't be there for a while. But there are documents that kind of show a direction that FDA has taken on this, and I wanted to talk about 3 of them today. The first one is a warning letter that FDA has sent to a cosmetics lab. The second is the CSA, the Computer Software Assurance for Production and Quality Management System Software. New version of it has been released in February of this year. And lastly, a draft guidance that's also very relevant for us, which is the considerations for the use of AI to support regulatory decision-making for drug and biological products. What do all these 3 documents tell us? Let's have a look. And the first one is the warning letter, and it's a first. It's the first ever warning letter citing AI over-reliance as a current good manufacturing practice violation. It was issued in April of this year to a manufacturer of homeopathic drugs. And the problem that FDA has surfaced is that the company used AI agents agents to create drug specifications, procedures, control records, and they did that without any kind of human review. And that's scary and not a thing to do. And when the FDA asked them why there was no process validation, the company's answer was, yeah, the AI agent never told us that was required.
Yeah.
And of course, the FDA said, that's not a good answer. You must review the documents if AI generates them, and your failure to do so is a violation. So yeah, it's clear, and FDA made it clear again that we all own the output as humans. And again, it's not don't use AI, and even like what they quoted, it's basically a violation of 21 CFR. It's a responsibility that quality control units have had for ages. So it's not AI related, but now you can, avoid it maybe, or get lazy much easier because you have the AI to do that.
Yeah, and I guess the base premise of that is not as much to do with AI, but how it has influenced our ways of working, right? It's I guess the assumption would be that if you outsource the documentation creation to a consultant, you would still review it. You would still own the responsibility in the same way as if an AI agent consultant did it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yes. And this is very good to, as you were hinting, Jakob, to this two important concepts that are at war right now in our brains. Like, I think everyone will find them who is using AI right now, even for the outside of work, feeling this pull towards cognitive surrender, which is like giving more and more power to the AI in making assessments. So imagine this scenario where like you ask the AI for an answer and you get the answer from the AI. So what do you do next kind of takes you in one direction or another, where, if you go the way of cognitive surrender, you just accept, you don't process, you say, okay, there's, if Claude says so, or if ChatGPT says so, then it must be true. What can I say? While, with critical thinking, which is highly promoted by FDA, ISP, GAM5, and so on, and the AI guide from ISP, you need to stay awake, you need to stay vigilant, and it's okay you took the help from AI, but you're still at the control wheel. And if someone asks you why this paragraph is here, why this decision has been made, you can back it up. You have an explanation. So this tension that, again, I think everyone is feeling who is using AI, from the regulator's perspective, always needs to be resolved in the favor of critical thinking. And I had to I had to use AI to create a meme for this. And then this gets us to the second document, which is the CSA, and the CSA makes it clear that software testing alone is not enough to have confidence that a software is fit for intended use. So you need software quality assurance to maintain a continuously validated state. So FDA, in the latest iteration of the CSA, made it clear that the guidance also applies to automation, like more advanced automations like bots, automatic workflows, AI, machine learning tools. So this is clear that agentic AI is covered by the CSA. At the same time, they make it clear that what they care about is most is what regulated entities do in a high process risk case. And it's interesting how they look at it. And again, this is we are not doing a full reading of the CSA. We strongly suggest that even if you're not directly covered by it, take some time to see how it applies to your use case, because there's a lot of good things to learn there. But like they take this shortcut where they say, think of things as high risk or not high risk, just binary. But at the same time, they also say this is a spectrum. It's not only high risk or not high risk. So it might be that there's a medium risk that where you also need to apply assurance activities. So, but of course, they will likely warn or fine someone if they haven't done something in a high risk situation. So yeah, the CSA focuses on defining these idea of like having sufficient objective evidence to show that the software or a function of the software performs as it's intended. So they recommend there that you have an appropriate record for that. So that needs to include the intended use of either the software or the function. Also here, they say like if the software is complex, you need to look at the functions. If it's very simple type of software, you can make an assessment that you will look at the system as a whole, but usually you shouldn't. Usually you should split the software into pieces and the function that it provides, and look at the risk and the intended use for each of those pieces of the software.
Makes sense.
And again, all of these needs to be documented, the assurance activities, and we'll have a look at an example of that in the next slides, and I'd love to get your reactions on that, Jakob. But just again to make this clear, so the formal scope of the CSA is to be used as part for software that's used as part of medical device production or part of the quality management system. But even if you're not clearly with the assessment that you're doing for software directly within the scope, I think this strongly can inform how risk-based software assurance can work. So it's a really solid document to rely on. And the example that is, I mean, this is Times New Roman font, and it's not beautiful, but but it's a really one thing. I mean, to make a slight parenthesis, what I love about the FDA guidance is always you have examples as compared to the European guidance, which is quite dry. So it's great that they have these examples, and this one was actually added with the latest iteration of the CSA, where they look at how you can do the assurance activities for a software as a service product. So this is something that wasn't fully explained before in the previous iteration. So they look at the evaluation of the software development lifecycle of the developer, the reviewing the vendor's QMS, reviewing the vendor's cybersecurity documentation, reviewing their infrastructure, support, availability, reliability, all of this, how to deal with automatic updates, what would be the responsibility of the manufacturer versus that of the software provider. And they provide these examples of how you can do all of these activities, the assurance activities, split by this is the feature that we're looking at. So in this case, it's the feature is project initiation and planning. So then they define an intended use. They show how risk-based analysis is done. Based on the risk-based analysis, the assurance activities, and then what are the assurance records that the appropriate records that need to be established for things to be kosher for the FDA. And I'd love to hear like how you see this and this approach.
I think that approach is also where we're moving more and more towards in UPRI. I would say the whole assurance also is where there's a brilliant marriage between modern software testing and release campaigns to more traditional GxP activities or GxP testing activities and validation activities. So I think to a large degree, this is what we're doing every single day, right? We're assessing the intended usage and using a risk-based model to find out where are the true risks that potentially in the last step of the chain could end up in affecting the patient safety, right?
Yeah.
So we deal a lot with environmental monitoring. That's our business. So for us, the most important things is to ensure that we have documentation, that we do alarm, and that we do continuously monitor these assets to ensure that we constantly have the documentation in place and the alarming in place, right? So that drives the testing and validation efforts, and having an assessment or assurance approach together with the risk-based approach, I think is the way forward. And that's also where we see the industry moving. Definitely.
Thank you. And I also reading this, I found a lot of parallels with what we're doing at UPRI, and also things that our customers are asking of us. That is, all of these four steps that FDA was suggesting or recommending. Seeing that written so sharply here. It was very, very interesting. So here the FDA defines, to go back to the example, various functions of this software. One, again, being the project initiation and planning, the other being the function for providing the electronic signature, another being the function for access control and traceability. And for each of these functions, there needs to, the intended use needs to be defined. There is another risk-based analysis. Based on the risk assessment, there are some activities and a separate appropriate record for each of these features. So it's quite clear what the FDA is saying, that you need to unpack the functionality of the software that you're using and assess the risks for that, and act upon it and document that. And that's what takes us to our third document, which is just as useful and maybe even more. Which is considerations for the use of AI to support regulatory decision making for drug and biological products. Long name, but so it's basically FDA's framework on AI model credibility. So the documents answers a different question than the CSA. CSA asks if a system is trustworthy, while this framework asks whether the answer from an AI model can be trusted. And I think the key insight that you can get from this document is that trust is never general. You can have AI that is accurate in the abstract. You have AI that is accurate at a very specific task, and that task influences a specific decision, and the amount of influence that the human has on that influence kind of also changes how the whole risk assessment. So the FDA introduced this concept, it's similar to the intended use, but it's at the same time it's a bit different. It's context of use, which is a written statement of what the AI is being used for. for example, if you want to create AI that is deciding whether an alarm, an environmental alarm is a false positive, let's say, or is it an actual excursion? That's the question. Like, is my alarm a true alarm or not? And then, based on this question that you're trying to answer, everything flows. So because then you get into the model risk assessment, where FDA proposes basically two factors that are just as important. One is the how much the model influences the decision from a low to high level, and then what happens if the model goes wrong. And here again, it's very important. Are we in a context where you have a human in the loop? Then even if you have a model that says something wrong, but you have a human assessing, then the total risk is less than you might think.
Yeah, and I guess that's also where the other factor that you talked about before, cognitive over-reliance, is like if you keep on checking, human in the loop, but if the human sees something that appears right, what is the true risk behind a human not stopping the process or getting engaged with that process to verify it?
And I think we can expect, as these models become better, in generally the model influence to be as close to high as it is, because people will also find it more and more easy to say, this is what the AI is saying, and who am I to question it? And that's why you need training on like, the biases of the models and hallucinations and all of that. So, and we'll get there shortly. But this cognitive over-reliance on the model can lead to the model having even more influence than you plan. But again, then the decision consequence is something that like the FDA gives this example of a product that is being shipped, and you have an AI system that labels the product. So the decision consequence is lower if on the other side, like when the product arrives, there's a human that checks the products, than if you have another AI system that just accepts it. So the decision consequence is very different, even if the use case is identical, depending on how how the whole system works in reality. So we were talking model risk, and another concept that is being introduced by this framework is this idea of model drift. And if you're used to deterministic algorithms where you enter 1 point plus 1 always makes 2. For generative AI, 1 plus 1 can sometimes make 3. So you have, and maybe with the Claude Opus 4.7, it's 3.5, and 4.8 is, so you have this tendency to drift that means you need to continuously assess the model during the entire life cycle. And finally, the framework introduces this concept of credibility evidence. So what evidence have I gathered while building or adapting this AI system that supports that the model is credible for the specific context of use. So again, it all ties into the context of use. You never look at, you never ask, is Claude Opus 4.7 a good model? You ask, is Claude Opus 4.7 a good model for this specific context of use with this specific parameter, performance parameters, and so on. So, and that's what FDA expects of us.
And can I ask you just before, because I think we got a question that's related to what we've just been talking about here from Milan. So how do you see the role of HITL or HODL, so human in the loop or human on the loop when using AI?
It's mandatory from, I think, both from my perspective and the regulator's perspective, especially in the, like, if we talk either agentic or generative AI, so non-deterministic AI, there's no way to bypass human in the loop in this context. And while FDA doesn't make it so sharp and so clear, you have other European regulations that say way clear, like the draft Annex 11, I think, says something around like, don't use AI, Gen AI in GxP contexts. So yeah, human in the loop is the way to go.
Yeah, and just for anyone who might not be familiar, so human in the loop is a process you've set up where the human verifies information, and human on the loop is where a human just monitors how the agentic AI might behave and oversees it in that way without being directly in the process itself. Right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So,
thank you very much.
In the loop.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've looked at this, and like, again, kind of to wrap up the steps defined in this in the framework by FDA. Again, it all starts with defining this question of interest, then defining the context of use of this of the AI system, assessing the risk, developing this plan to establish the credibility, and executing the plan, documenting the results, discussing the deviations, addressing them, and documenting how you've addressed them. And then in the end, basically, you determine the adequacy of the model for that specific context of use. And I really wanted to make this highly specific. So we would love to go through with you through this worked example of applying this framework to an AI that drafts deviation reports. So without further ado, step one, actually the scenario first, again, to say again, so you want to build an in-house AI feature that takes your EQMS deviations that have already been human-made and approved and finalized, takes them in, you train them, and based on those, you can then have excursions, deviations, and create draft reports for these new deviations based on the similar past deviations. So how can you do that in a way that is FDA friendly? So first thing that you would do is define a question of interest. So what question do we expect the AI to answer? In this case, the question that we want the AI to answer is, what is the cause of the deviation? What is the impact? And what corrective and preventive actions are required? This is what a human would do. So I want my AI, my hypothetical AI, to answer this question. So starting with this question of interest, we then define the context of use. And the context of use looks at both the AI and the human. Again, we need the human. So luckily, yes, for a couple more minutes. The AI, in this case, in our exercise, is an LLM. Let's say, I don't know, Claude Opus 4.7, grounded by semantic RAG. So that would be like a separate database that you use to to ground the model on with previous deviations, and the model will retrieve similar deviations and draft a deviation report for a new deviation based on its knowledge of the previous ones. So once the AI does that, it creates a draft report. Then you have a trained, qualified QA investigator that reviews that, edits the draft, and approves it. And then you have everything around this with a clear labeling of the draft that it's an AI-generated draft, and it's not the sole determinant of the outcome. It's a draft that is used in conjunction with what a human investigator judges, and that becomes part of the full record. And this is very much in opposition to what our example warning, FDA warning letter has surfaced. So we have the question of interest, we have the context of use, and then we do the risk assessment. And we look at the two things. We look at the impact on the patient, so, or the product, the safety. So what is the consequence of the assessment being wrong? And it's a high consequence. At the same time, you have a qualified investigator who checks the data, reviews that, and owns the output. And that means, or at least in principle, as you said, the model influence is low, or you can make the case that it's medium. It's somewhere low medium. But in the end, if you put these together, my assessment at least, and I do you concur?
I would somehow, yes, but I think there's also a time aspect, right? Knowing that it most likely most of the time would be right, you have to start to have this over-reliance a little bit. And I think there's also a large part of it is where you wrote a qualified investigator. I mean, how experienced is that person and so forth. But agree.
Thank you. So here, let's say we assess that the risk is medium. What do we do next? We make a plan. This is what FDA expects of us, and for anyone experienced with CSV, this kind of is your IQ, OQ, PQ translated to AI. But you're validating the model's reasoning surface inside your data. So we, can look at things like retrieval precision or recall. So not how much of a wordsmith the model is, how great it is at writing, but like specific metrics. And we document all of this. So FDA expects us to describe the model, exact type of model, version, the whole architecture, the retrieval logic, why we are using that. They want us to describe the data. And here we have all the, ALCOA plus requirements, the gold standard labels, like when you define some test data that you want to use, those gold standards, why you have chosen, how you have set the standards. And also for the evaluation, which it's super important, never to test on data that was used to train or tune the model. And this is highlighted also in the ISP AI guide, but also FDA makes it clear you need to have an independent test set. So if you just tune the model on your deviations, and then you enter one of those deviations and you get the specific results, then that's completely a huge no-no. So all of these needs to be described in the plan, and then we run with the plan, we execute it, of course, in an isolated environment, as far away from production as possible. we run the tests, we generate the AI drafts for the test set. I imagine here that we would have a panel of actual human subject matter experts that would blindly compare the investigations from the AI with human investigations and make say like, are they good enough or not? And all of this, of course, would be logged and signed and approved and potentially reviewed by the FDA at a later time. So yeah, all of this goes into this credibility assessment report. And yeah, again, we propose here an example expected outcome where we have factual accuracy of 93%, where we had set a more than 90% target accuracy, so that's good enough. But we found the hallucination. The model detected completely fabricated citation. So then we need to also document what we did to mitigate. So then what in this imagined context we did is went back to the whole RAG model and tuned it so that it is prompted to cite the actual records. We reran the tests. All of that, again, in a traceability matrix as we're used to. So we have a risk, we have a test, we have results, and residual risk statement. So then at the end, we get to the accuracy determination. And this is, again, what the FDA makes it clear. It's a conditional license. It's never a one and done. We can use this AI tool, but inside the perimeter that we built in step 2 when we did the risk assessment, with the controls that we tested in step 5 when we executed the plan. And we can do that only until the model changes. So if it does, then we need to go back to the whole flow. And you can see how the results lead to the adequacy determination for the context of use. So we have the hallucination that we detected, and that will take us to some controls that we established. So in this case, so in the document, FDA says there are some options that you can do when the adequacy is not fully established. So you can downgrade the influence of the model, you can add either rigor or data, you can establish some additional controls, you can change your approach, you can reject the context of use or revise it. And in this specific case, our verdict would be to establish appropriate controls to mitigate the risk. So here we propose 3 mitigations. One is a mandatory citation check. So we make it as part of the SOPs that an investigator, when reviewing the draft, will verify the reference deviation ID and make sure that it exists. We would have an SOP and train the users on the hallucination risk. And finally, big focus on the reassessment, rerunning all the whole tests if the users identify any hallucinations or any issues during the running. So all of these, the traceability matrix and the adequacy determination is what the strongest thing that you can show to an inspector to say, hey, we've done all that. It's defensible. We've looked at it from the beginning to the end. We've tested and locked it down, and it's working. So again, this is something that can work outside of like the clear scope of the guidance in other GxP areas that are not right now regulated at all by the FDA, maybe. So yeah, this is kind of gets us to the end of the 3 document talking about them. But I would love to hear from you, Jakob, if you have any kind of taking all this in, if you have any thoughts or final conclusions.
I would say one of the things we're seeing a lot with our clients out there is there's a big amount of confusion right now. And how should you assess model impact? How should you assess the risks associated with these? And to be honest, I think it's an inherent risk that we're all taking, that we don't truly understand how these models work. We don't truly understand what their boundaries are. How can we confine them? How can we safeguard them? But I think this is what we're going to see, the expectations of the FDA going forward. And I think they're also being deliberately a little bit vague, but very consistent and very descriptive about the direction they're seeing this going in. And I think also we have a lot of questions from some of the viewers, if you're happy.
Of course, and I would, before we get to the question, I had 2 more. Like, I just want to plug 2 documents. We didn't get any commission from anyone for talking about them, but like the ISP AI guide is an excellent tool. I really recommend you check it out. And if you want to get really serious about integrating AI agents into your GxP context, there's a kind of SOC 2 for agents, which is a standard called AI UC1. It covers data and privacy, security, safety, reliability, accountability, societal risks. So all of this in a certification that you can either do for your own products or ask your vendors to be certified. So it's the standard, and check it out if you want to look at how major companies are thinking in this context of agentic AI eating the world. But yeah, let's get to your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Stefan. First of all, that was truly interesting. I think for all of us, to be fairly honest, it is a brave new world, and we need to assess. And there's not a lot of experience to draw from already now, because it's such a brand new topic. I think I will just go through some of the questions here. So I think there's been multiple questions in terms of how you should label AI-generated drafts or contents, or whether consultants or third-party labs are required to label content as AI-generated. What's your take on that?
I mean, it really depends on the context of use to keep the like, if it's there's this whole data integrity, there's the whole Alcoa Plus principles that where that also apply to anything that is generated by an AI model. So if you use an AI model in your process, and like, let's say you have a prompt that your tool gives to another AI tool, and the tool provides a decision based on that, all of that needs to be logged. And so you need traceability and explainability also for that. But it really, like, if it's just, I don't know, paper produced by a consultant, I think we're going into more like ethics and morals of using AI. I think AI disclosure is always a good thing, but
I guess the core concept here is really also that you need to own it.
Yes.
So if a human has reviewed it, and I think one of the many discussions we have in the coffee machine, you and I, is also like the whole concept of, we've had autocorrection for tens of years. That's also sort of an AI, right? It's all about owning the outputs, and whether you label that becomes more an ethics-based question, right?
Yeah. In the end, the document will be signed by a consultant, so they will be I don't know, responsible for a part of that. But then, of course, you will read the document and make some decision based on that, so you will be responsible. So
yeah, and that all goes back to data integrity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another great question here. So there are consultants claiming that standard CSV is insufficient or inappropriate for AI. What is your opinion on this?
Well, I think FDA says the same thing. I mean, that's the whole CSA approach complements CSV because of the whole aspect of non-determinism and like the models, like you have a CSA kind of it doesn't supersede CSV, and there's a lot of like value in CSV still, but like you need to do more. And that's where where the CSA helps. That's where the framework that we've discussed at the end helps. That's where the ISP AI guide helps. So yeah, I would say that you need to complement CSV with some more methods.
And I guess also the inherent risk-based nature of an AI really benefits from the CSA approach, in that you have a much finer grid of trying to identify what the risk is based on the context of usage and the model influence and all of these, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have a question for time for the last question here. So how can an application or system maintain a validated state when the AI component relies on a specified model, and that model or underlying model system evolves or changes over time? Do we need to perform revalidation as part of this process?
Yeah, you need to lock the model, and you can do that. I mean, there are some contexts where if you use an integrator, let's say you use something like Open Router, which allows you to connect to any kind of AI model, and you can say, I want to use GPT-5 latest, and that will always use the latest version of the model, and that's a huge problem. But you can say, I want to use GPT 5.5, and then you validate and you do everything against GPT 5.5. If you want to change to GPT 5.6 or Claude Opus, when you need to rerun everything. So the idea is never to allow the model to auto update. The assurance activities, kind of everything that you do needs to run again if the model changes, and this is made quite clear by the FDA too.
Yeah. So I guess in this context, the specifics will be just as if we update a computer system, you need to assess the impact, and due to the highly complex nature of an AI, you need to rerun your assurance activities, just like you would with any other system, or if you're changing infrastructure or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and you're not using ChatGPT. You're using GPT 5.5, and that's kind of, this is you're testing and validating and doing everything against that. There's one thing that kind of complicates this. We've seen quite often performance degradation with the same model version. You can read quite a lot about this. Anthropic, for example, has released some assessments on this, and they say they had infrastructure problems that basically made Claude stupider. So you can even end up using the exact same model version, but due to some throttling performance issues, actually the model can be dumber. So, I mean, this is an open question. What can you do on the assurance side to make sure that the quality of the output stays high? It's not clear. I mean, again, we go back to the non-determinist situation where you would expect the same model with the same version to always at least kind of be.
So just like a tired quality engineer will just make poor choices.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes Claude gets tired.
Okay, I think that was the end of it. Thank you so much, Stefan. I think we all learned. There were still a lot of questions that we still didn't answer, but I think it will be time maybe at some later point in time to have yet another webinar on this topic. As always, you can find the recorded version on our website, and you can also sign up for future webinars. We have another one in just 2 weeks where we'll be sending from our US office. As always, if you have a comment or question or just a bit of feedback, please write it in the chat. Otherwise, have a great day for the rest of the day.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you.